What's going on, champions? Welcome to shoot, I'm not even looking at the camera. The camera's over there now. It's usually like right here. Welcome, champions, to another episode of the Perspektiv podcast. Tune in the heart of mentorship. Let's go!
Good job, 𝗏𝗵𝗲. That was good.
Yeah, the real come out in the fourth time, you know? Fourth time's the charm. Let's go. And as you can see, actually, we got to finish the intro, Dylan.
What's up, everybody? My name's Dylan.
I am 𝗏𝗵𝗲.
And 𝗧𝗵𝗲 Castillo.
And this is another episode of the Perspektiv mentorship. I was going to say the Perspektiv podcast. That's what it is. I just messed that up. But you know what it is. Perspektiv podcast. Let's go. I'm just too distracted by what's going on behind me. I don't know if y'all see. Got my K-Nation shirt. Let's go. Signed by a bunch of my former players. And you know, I had to rep the Kings of Africa. And this is going to hold me down until my art piece comes in.
Can we hear a little more about the Kings of Africa? Because right now, me and Izzy can't see it because we're watching the other camera.
So these are two of my Kings of Africa that I have in my bedroom in Toronto. I have about like 8 of them. And these were actually given to me as a gift from the late, great Dr. 𝗥ciecie_𝗁𝗍 from St. FX. She's a trailblazer in Canada. And she, I was telling the Mount Allison students the other day, like she forced me into a position of leadership. She taught me about the Maroons, taught me about Viola Desmond and 𝗥𝗍𝗶𝗹𝗁 settlement in Nova Scotia. And like, she really like woke me up, like literally woke me up. So she gave these as a gift to me. And this is Shaka Zulu, who's one of the greatest leaders from South Africa and revolutionized warfare, created a special spear and shield combination that just changed the game to the point where most of the time when they came against opposition, the opposition would be afraid and run and hide. So like he revolutionized warfare. This is my man 𝗥cie the Great, and he brought unity to Central Africa. He's a big time Muslim, and he brought unity to Central Africa, and he's one of the great kings of Africa.
I like
Powerful.
That.
I love it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. I keep my company around kings. You know, if I stay around kings, then I can feel like a king.
Love it.
I was looking at the wrong video when I said that.
It's all about the angles right now.
So you would be a terrible news anchor, eh? You know how they have to
like look at the wrong.
Look back. Don't quit your day job.
I'm making it
yeah, I was just commenting on his shirt, Old Man Cardio, and
Man Cardio, which I need to start doing a little bit more of. Old Man Cardio. For those who don't know what Old Man Cardio is, it's any type of cardio that's less taxing on your body. As you get older, you can't do the sprints and all the heavy weightlifting that you used to do back in the days. You gotta switch it up and adapt, and you know, do a little exercise like squash, which Dylan and I often take part in. Where's Dylan?
He's always gone.
I bet she's getting his squash racket.
Yeah, probably.
Racket.
This is like the magic bag of tricks. What is coming out here?
Racket. I can see that happening.
Sorry,
Ario.
Ario's way too into the podcast. I had to put her on timeout.
I thought you were getting your squash racket to tell them about Old Man Cardio.
Yo, you telling them about how you had bought your own and made me use the cheap YMCA one and then flexed on me when I lost?
That's the only reason you lost?
Where's Shark? Someone call Shark.
That's about the performance, not the equipment.
Anyways, back to your font you used on your t-shirt. That's a Batman Forever font. I used that font for Sport Play, our first t-shirts we ever made for Sport Play. What if someone wants to buy that? Where can they buy it?
If you want to buy or purchase a shirt for me and support the 𝗏𝗵𝗲 Fund, you can go to 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏
If you want to support, get Kwame more art in his background, go to 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏.
All right, how's everybody feeling, man? I'm not gonna lie, I was struggling today. I was really tired. A lot going on today, but you know, coming on, my energy just jumped. Like you could ask my wife. Literally 5 minutes before, I was like, But y'all brought life to me, so I appreciate that. But how's everybody feeling?
Yo, same thing. I had a lot going on. I mean, my man, who I won't expose him on the podcast, but he had a date last night. So me, we had to get him ready. We had to get him a haircut. We had to get him feeling, you know, get the confidence level on 100. And then we sent him off into the world. And, you know, you can only do so much at home. You know, once he's out there,
once it's game time, it's different, man. Game time is different.
So I won't open up his life on the podcast. But
was it a good date at least?
I can't tell. I don't want to say these things.
Nobody's gonna know who it is.
Everybody knows.
Really? It's like that? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
We're not there anymore, so
you forgot you're not in Toronto. Yeah, small communities, man. Small communities up in here. Plus, it's COVID, so there's only like 5 people going on a date in the whole city. So it's big news. And yeah, this morning I had a lot of running around to do. I came here, I had like 45 minutes. I hit a clean meditation, like boom, just woke my whole like, I was feeling good. It came out of that.
That makes a lot of sense because I saw your Snapchat or your Instagram or something like that.
Oh yeah, I got a speeding ticket this morning too.
Yeah.
Oh no.
In a rush, eh?
Yeah.
Yes.
It wasn't.
I feel like you get pulled over way more.
A lot. Yeah, a lot.
Like I don't get pulled over that much for speeding. On average, I feel like I see like something on your Instagram like once a month for speeding.
It's not rushing though. It's always the music. When a certain songs come on and I get hype and think I'm in like Fast and the Furious, and I just like, you know, I love driving. And it's such a small town that you can't really drive like that. You can't really, there's no highway that you can just go, you know? If you're on the 401, you can just go. You're not going to get a speeding ticket for going 150. You know what I mean? But if you're on...
Oh, the OPP will get you, man. OPP. Don't sleep on the OPP. They'll get you.
Anyways, I got to chill. That's the moral of the story. Chill out, Dylan.
What music were you listening to?
Well, I had... So it connected to... Again, I can't expose him, so I can't say his name. It connected to him, and Treasure by Bruno Mars came on. So it's like a Sunday morning. You know, I'm bopping my head. I'm like, oh, Treasure. What? And then we're feeling good. And then and it was raining. It's raining today here. And then Weather the Storm, DJ Khaled was the next song that came on. Kicked it back into 5th. I was like, let's go. Woo woo. Let's not go. Shut it down. Izzy, how you doing? Any speeding tickets?
Well, no speeding tickets today, nor have I ever got one. So
really,
clean record, yeah.
Whoa. Ever?
I thought I was a grandma.
Yeah.
Hey, no offense,
I don't have
I'm
the
a
need
grandma
for
driver.
speed. Yeah, I don't have the need for speed.
Yo, we're on Amazing Race, and we open a clue, and it says, and me and Kwame kind of decide, like, because you don't know what it is. It said something about math. Who's good at math? I'm like, yo, Kwame, you got this one. We open it up, and it's like, go to the racetrack, and something about a Camaro. And I was like, yo, we just lost the race. Kwame's gonna get in a Camaro, and it's over. I was like, we're done. But luckily, the challenge was how slow you can drive in a Camaro, and Kwame's great at that.
Perfect. I will say though, Dylan, over the last year, like I came across a sport function in my car, and I've been killing that, and this, my needs for speed has increased.
Yeah?
I'm not gonna lie, yeah, because in sport mode, it's just like zoom, like.
Oh, I'm proud of you. Anyways, sorry. Back to Izzy.
Yeah, no speeding tickets here. But also, I don't know, this morning I was just like, this whole weekend's going to be a disconnecting to reconnect, because I've been on my phone a lot and feeling a little too overstimulated by the technology. So that's going to be my plan after this. So that was my morning, just waiting for the podcast, ready to get some energy here, and then chilling later, going for a walk.
Well, you got to watch out for the deer.
Oh yeah, I gotta watch
Bears.
those wildlife
Yeah,
situations.
facts.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a whole
Watch out
different
for
ball
them.
game.
Don't let them
So-
catch you.
The wildlife zone that I'm gonna be entering in a bit. But no, it's been good. I'm feeling relaxed today, so I'm just mellow. It's a good
Yeah, I
feel.
can tell. You got mellow relaxation vibes
Yeah.
coming off you.
I went to bed earlier too, so
Yeah, I did not go to bed early. I had to stay up and wait. I was like, at the window, like, is he coming home soon? Like, I need to hear all the details. Like, yeah.
Wow. That's a proud father, eh? I feel that. I feel that. All right, let's get into it, man. Let's get into it. Dylan, let's go.
Yeah, you want it? You ready?
I realize there's no point in doing the sound effect.
yeah. We all have different drum sounds too.
Okay. How now this question's worded a little odd, but I think we can pick it apart. How do you deal with youth when drugs is a lifestyle? That's a layered question.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
I feel like Dylan, you're the expert in this one.
I'll pick apart the question. I don't know if I'm an expert, but I'll just say, and I think this comes back to a lot of what we're always talking about with people and how you grew up. And then when you're dealing with other situations, you can't project your own experiences onto that. For instance, drugs is a very loose term. What are we talking about when we talk about drugs? Because I've had parents come to me that are like, oh, my kid's doing drugs, won't stop doing drugs. And what they mean is they're smoking a lot of marijuana. I have parents who come to me and be like, oh, my kid's addicted to drugs. And we're talking about like meth. So those are totally different ends of the spectrum when you're talking about drugs. So I think that throws a lot of people off. I mean, typically you don't see the harder drugs as like a maybe teacher in the classroom of junior high or high school. You're not gonna have to deal with like heroin, opioids, methamphetamines. It does happen, but I'm just saying that's less common. I'm not totally sure where this question's coming from. So maybe we just attack it from all angles and see where we come out with at the other side. Okay, I'll go first. So, okay, let's start with marijuana. I think marijuana has been around forever in schools as a lifestyle piece. I think with the legalization, you might see a lot more people using it as medicine. So that might be something that's more in the news than was like 20 years ago. And I think that gets confused with people a lot because I know can be used to curb anxiety for some kids. And that's kind of why they might begin to go that route. But I think it might get a little bit confused with also just the lifestyle. Like it's a big thing right now to put on your social media the biggest bong rip you can take and wear 420 t-shirts and socks. So it's not necessarily even about the substances or what they're doing for you. It's about being part of this lifestyle. Just like we talk about everything, people want to attach to an identity when they're going through a certain phase of their life. And some people become music kids, some people become science kids, like some people become marijuana kids because that's the identity that they're trying to find. So I think when we're answering this question, we might want to look at that kind of side of it of why are you doing it, I guess, because that's always the question that I personally come down to when I'm talking with the kids, when I'm going into these kind of questions. It's like I really don't like to come from a place of do this, don't do this, like Nancy Reagan classic, like just don't do drugs. Like it was that easy for kids to just go to school and what I mean, just say no. Like it doesn't work like that. But if you can really put those questions to the youth, why are you doing this, and let them have their own critical voice in their head, that can always lead to a better road, I would say, of self-understanding. Yeah. Any thoughts on that?
Looking at the mentoring aspect of it, because I know we had a lot of those situations where drugs were mentioned as part of the referral, or they, like the mentee mentioned that through conversation. But you had a good point, Dylan, with the whole intent, like knowing the intention of why they're using it and trying to get to the root of that. I've had a lot of youth share that with me, and it was more based on like anxiety or, dealing with some issues they had in their life. But I know, like, coming from the lens of not being like drugs are bad is not a good way to have a conversation with someone if you are in a mentoring role or a teaching role or parent. It's really looking at like, why are they using it, if they can share that, and like going deeper than that. It's even if it's using it for, we're not scientists here, we're not doctors, so we're not going to give advice on like what are the benefits or the cons of using a drug. But when we're looking at the full circle of support and how can we support somebody even with that, like using, making sure that, if they are doing that drug, having conversations about safety, like looking at the safety option, because we're not going to be the game changers of like, don't do this drug, but we can have conversations about the safety of it and knowing a little more deeper about like, when are they using it and is it helping? Like, are they needing different supports that can help instead of highly dependent on a certain substance? I'm not going to narrow to a substance directly to talk about, but definitely, I think when we look at that, it's good to look at, I've always had conversations about safety, knowing who's giving it to you. Is it someone local or whatever selling it? Is it something that's been prescribed? Like going deeper than that, because when you come off from very judgment of like drugs are bad and you shouldn't be doing it, you're too young and all this kind of stuff, it already eliminates a discussion, a report that you can have where you can get deeper. Because often I've had a lot of people share why they're using it, and sometimes they're like, I don't want to use this. Like, I just only know that this is the only thing. So like, I think for me, I would tackle that one more based on like a discussion piece and building rapport and understanding, and then going from there. Like, obviously if there's more serious cases and stuff like that, we go to the professionals to go deal with certain scenarios, and we can be the bridging person to that support, because often people don't feel comfortable to go to those supports unless if they trust you.
Yeah, because I find also I won't name any one institution, but there's a lot of trust that's lost when you put a list of worst case scenarios next to a drug. So the kid sees like, okay, if I take this, I'll experience psychosis. Like, it's kind of like when you listen to those ads on TV and they're like, side effects may include diarrhea, death, like blah, blah, blah. But most of the time, none of that happens. So if the kid is getting fed this information, this will happen, this will happen, this will happen. And then maybe they try this once and none of that happens. Well, now they just lost trust for that whole institution, whether it was school, whether it was the police, whether it was a hospital, whoever told them all these things. They're like, okay, well, that's a bunch of BS.
Yeah, I agree with everything both of you said. First and foremost, you got like, people are taking drugs for various different reasons. There's totally like various different reasons. Some people are taking it just to fit in. Some people are taking it to cope with something. Some people are taking it because that's all they know, right? They're family members. They have a bunch of family members that take drugs. They've seen people taking drugs and they just think it's normal. It's part of their normal day-to-day life. And they've learned this from people in their family. So there's so many different ways, so many different avenues of leading these people to taking drugs. So I think it's about knowledge of self and value of self. Do these people value themselves? Maybe you think they do, but having an external view of what they're taking and where it's leading to could help. These advertisements about just don't take drugs, they don't do anything. The stuff on the cigarettes, the cigarette box, that advertisement showing the bad lungs and the tar on the teeth doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything until the people are in that situation. You know what I mean? So I think it's just figuring out why the person is taking the drugs and then move from there. Just figure it out first. Because if you don't know why they're taking it, and you could be prescribing an answer or giving them advice that doesn't even pertain to them. It's kind of like, oh, shoot.
Again?
Sorry about that. Nah, it's just effed up. All right. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties again. I don't know, man. No, I'm just not good with technology these days. But to finish off my thought, as I was saying, like, if you could go to a doctor and just because you have symptoms of, I don't know, for instance, right now, you're coughing, you're sneezing, and the doctor says you have COVID just based on your symptoms without actually diving in and testing you and figuring out what is really going on internally. He can misdiagnose you, you know, so there is no one answer. For instance, I run a program at an institution in Kingston, right? And last week I had a meeting, well, I had a conversation with one of the elders that come to the jail, and he goes to a bunch of different jails, and he was just telling me, man, people think like you could just like these guys are just bad and they are lashing out, and there's one way to treat them, whether they're struggling with some type of personality disorder or something, or they're just angry, and there's just one way to treat them: give them a drug, right? Give them a pill. But he's like, people don't understand so much things have happened over the course of these guys' lives for them to get to where they're at. Like, it's one thing led to another, led to another. So to answer your question, we got to find out what led to the drug taking, what led to the next thing after that. And until you get to the root of the problem, they'll just keep using drugs. You could cut off the weeds, just chop it off. But if you don't get to the roots, it's going to keep growing. So figure out what the root is.
And I think that goes back to what Izzy was saying about how you're having these conversations. Is there judgment in your tone? Is there some kind of like, because even if you're not displaying judgment, sometimes you can with your eyes, with your body language, like really having that conversation judgment free. And I think that's going to be a running theme with whatever question comes our way. It's always going to be like, you got to approach these situations without judgment and actively practice how you're presenting yourself, your body, your listening skills, your shock. Like if someone tells you something, and you, even if you're well-intentioned, you're like, oh my God, that's crazy. Like, I can't believe you just told me that. Like, even that can make someone a little bit withdraw. Like, oh shoot, like this is my life, and I just shocked this person who cares about me with, you know, telling them something. So yeah, it's a lot of that. And I think it's important what Kwame just said too, like take your own experience, your own life experience away from the situation and understand everything that happened in their life to get them to that point. Like I've, you know, I didn't grow up in an environment where there was crack in my household. So when I was going through a hard time, when something bad was happening to me, it never occurred to me to do that. I never had the thought like, oh, maybe if I took crack, that would help with this situation I'm dealing with, because I never saw that. 100% of the kids that I've dealt with who have had experiences with crack cocaine, there's someone in their family who did that. They saw that. It was learned behavior. They didn't just, you don't just think up that thought because you watch the documentary. That's not how it works. You got to see the stuff. You got to grow up with this stuff. And then that's where it gets embedded in your head. So when you're talking to someone, you got to understand the place they came from to get to that point. Like Kwame just said, like it didn't just come out of nowhere, you know?
And like what I just said, also, everybody has a different reason for taking drugs. And at the same time, everybody will have a different way to stop taking drugs. There's different things that will help. Something that may help me or something that may change my perspective in taking drugs might not be effective for you. For instance, case in point, when I was younger, I used to smoke a lot of weed. Like literally, I used to smoke a lot of weed. I mean, like blunts after blunts, you know, bongs and all that stuff when I was in high school. And I remember going away for university and coming back one year, and this guy who I looked up to, he was like a cool guy, you know, got all the girls, you know, like a pretty boy, but at the same time, like he was kind of in the streets and whatnot. And I saw him one day, and he just looked weird, like he was moving funny, like it was like he was just like had lost his mind, like there was something going wrong with him. He just was not the same person. This guy was somebody who's usually cool, calm, collected, very charismatic, you know, and he's somebody people just gravitated to. And I saw him and I was just like, yo, what happened? Then I find out that, yo, this guy smoked something that was laced with something, and from then on, he just was not the same. So for what I took out of that is that, hey, bro, like, first of all, if you're gonna smoke weed, make sure you know where it's coming from, because your drug dealer isn't going to be the most cleanliest person. You know what I mean? They're not going to make sure there's no crack or any heroin residue left over from whatever he's cutting his stuff in, or she's cutting her stuff with, and measuring. They're not going to be paying attention to all that stuff.
I like how Kwami's still like very good with the genders, even in every situation. Even the drug dealers can be girls or boys. We're not sexist here.
Yeah, no, nothing. I'm learning over the years. But what I'm saying is, like, you got to be smart. For that scared the crap out of me, seeing that, because I didn't want to be like that. So I literally stopped. I stopped cold turkey. Stop. Something that may work for me may not work for you, but something that may work for you will not work for me. So at the end of the day, it's dependent on the person. But going back to everything I said, you got to know the reasons why.
Yeah, big facts. I guess I'll also say, like, your judgment, kind of what we talked about last time with history, and how the history books were written by people and summarized by people, and all this information gets passed down. It's the same with the medical field. Like, and I mean, there's a whole, you can go research the war on drugs and all this stuff, but there's a lot of stuff that maybe we don't know. So don't take for granted about like what someone's telling you their experience is. If someone's telling you that, you know, like Izzy mentioned, like, this is really helping with my anxiety, listen to what the person's saying. And that's where that not judgment piece comes in. Like, if they're telling you something, if you're having a real conversation with someone, okay, let's dig deeper into that. It doesn't mean you have to, you know, smoke weed all day and go to school high. Like, maybe that's not the best way we can deal with this, but there's something there that this person's saying to you. I'm experiencing this and this is helping me. So, okay, let's dive deeper into this. I mean, and this might be getting a little too like on my personal take on things, but I've seen a lot of people who go to the hospital and get hooked on certain prescription drugs that the hospital has administered to them, that turns out being an addiction down the line. And I keep thinking, like, well, why is this happening? Like, what is going on? And then I know there's a whole field of research going on with a couple podcasts I listen to, like Timothy Ferriss and Sam Harris, who are working on you know, psychedelics dealing with like PTSD and depression and stuff. And this is like a Schedule 1 drug that you could never use for testing for like years and years and years. So my whole point is, like, the medical field is changing. What the doctors told us 20 years ago about how certain drugs affected us has now been changed. So, not being a doctor myself, not, you know, doing these experiments myself, I just always have to keep in the back of my head, like, there's probably a lot of things that I don't know. And whatever this person's lived experiences is, I have to take that and listen to them and not just dismiss them because of whatever, you know, substance they might be on. Now, I think being this long in the game, like, I can kind of use a judgment to see when someone's kind of, you know, maybe using a party drug. And I can also know that maybe smoking weed and taking crystal meth is not the same. Like, I can make those judgments myself. So if you're not informed on what street drugs are, maybe it's a good idea for you to get informed if that's something you're dealing with in your situation. Because there definitely is like a scale. But yeah, just remember, you don't always know everything. I guess is the point of that.
I wanted to bring that point up too, just for the fact that when we were talking about like having that open dialogue, it's really important, because you never know down the line if it was something that became an issue for the individual who has stated that, you know, like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, it's no longer part of my lifestyle. Like, it's affecting me. It's important, because if you were that person they talked to originally about it, or you were that person they first experienced that open dialogue with, then they're going to be coming to you later on for help and being like, hey, can you help me? Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go, but I just know I can't have this in my life. It's affecting my relationship. It's affecting, you know, like, my mental health. Like, I don't feel the same anymore. So just know that, like, please have that open dialogue conversation, because you can be a lifeline for someone down the line. And that's something that I've seen happen a lot. I know whenever someone was having open dialogue with me as a youth, I was more than willing to go to them because they did that once for me, but I was not willing to go to someone automatically if they had judgment. So just remember, every conversation, every report you have is very important. It can be something later down the line that they'll come back to you. So for parents out there, if you're struggling with someone in your life or a child or someone in your life, just think about the longevity of it. And sometimes it's hard to think about that when you're just in the present moment of stress and dealing with that in the moment. But open the dialogue. Just remember, how would you want to be spoken to?
Yeah, that's amazing point. And sometimes you gotta crush your own thought process of right and wrong, or what you thought was right and wrong. I was recently speaking to a parent whose son is kind of getting heavy into the weed game, and like Kwame just mentioned, he was scared. He was like, I don't know where he's getting this stuff from. So what he's doing now is he's providing his son with that marijuana, not because he wants to, not because he wants his son smoking, but because he knows it's safe. He's like, at least I know where I can get it from. I know that's going to be safe. And that's going to be hard for a lot of people to wrap their heads around, that this parent's like now buying his kid weed. But again, one, you're breaking down the barrier, so now we can have an open conversation, and two, you know, your kid's going to be safe. And I think especially when the term drug is heard, it brings up a lot of things for people, and it's like it's hard to maneuver these kind of like weird situations where what's right and what's wrong. Am I being an enabler? Am I not? And like, I want them to be safe. And that's really gonna, like, we can't answer that here, but that's gonna be a case by case. But I will say sometimes what your previous thought process was of right and wrong can be totally shifted depending on a situation. I mean, I've never smoked cigarettes, and I'm very against smoking cigarettes, but have I bought cigarettes for kids before in certain situations because that was the right thing to do at that moment? Yes. And how am I going to explain to someone that I bought a 15-year-old girl cigarettes at this time? But you know, when you're dealing with a hard drug and we're dealing with treatment and we're going to get help, and it's just a situation that pops up. So if you would have told me when I first got into this field that, you know, 8 years down the road, you're going to be buying a pack of smokes for a girl, I would have been like, yo, you're crazy. Like, what are you saying? But then you find yourself in these situations and it's like, well, we're getting her to a next step, and this is part of the process. And so stuff like that is like, what is right and wrong? There is no right and wrong in these situations. You got to play it case by case, and you got to lead with your heart and non-judgment.
Sorry, I could hear something. My wife talking. Could you guys hear?
Question.
I don't know. I just feel like with all this stuff, like for me, my personal opinion is I just look at from the standpoint of development, like physiological developments and psychological development. You know, the human body doesn't evolve to a certain age. You don't fully develop to a certain age. So I'm always like cognizant of the effects, especially of a young kid smoking weed, like the effects it can have on their mind. You know, and it doesn't just go to just weed. There's so many things, even music, the effects of music, listening to gangster rap, like can have a huge effect on a kid's brain compared to an adult's brain, you know? So that's another angle that I think we also need to think about with regards to children, you know, because taking drugs at a young age could affect you a lot in your older ages. So
100%. And that's, I think you can relate that right to football with parents that talk to me about head injuries and things like that. It's like, yes, is this a possibility that, you know, you could be injured on the field or something like that could happen? Absolutely. That's part of it. But how many kids have you seen who, I mean, even yourself, where would you be without football? You know what I mean? Like, was that risk reward worth it for you? Like, maybe not for all kids, but definitely for some kids, for them to be part of a team, for them to feel success in a certain way, for them to have a craft that they're good at. Like, that's what football was for me. So and I think you can relate it back to this, like, if the kid's going to do it anyways, like we're not out here advocating for every kid should do this, but sometimes you got to look at like the other effects of not like, if this, and I'm talking from experience that I've seen, like when you're going through a bad anxiety spell and this is the only thing that helps right now, like maybe there is a better way and we'll find it. But right now, I think the cost of what you might be doing to the development of your brain is worth it to the deep, dark place that you end up in if you don't manage this anxiety. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And looking at development, like with development, trauma affects someone's brain. Like there's so many elements that happens in someone's life that affects them. So when we're looking at as a drug as a added on to the home life stress they're dealing with, their own mental health situations they're dealing with, it's a really like compact like situation. So it's like, obviously we're not like having a case right now and like ripping it apart to see what is the root of it. But as like workers or friends, family members, as teachers, as parents, what you can do in your capacity. If someone comes to you with that, even asking what does lifestyle mean to them? Because to me, it means something completely different. So when I heard the question, I'm like, does lifestyle mean like they live and breathe it every day? Or is it like the lifestyle they have with their friends, the lifestyle they have with their family, because that can look completely different. So just breaking it down, like the words they're saying, like that's why active listening is really key. Like when you're hearing someone speak to you, like literally taking in what they're saying and not putting your own like story to what the words that come out of their mouth. But definitely there's a lot of effects when we're looking at drugs. But I think for me, like even when I was working with youth, I was questioning that in my brain, like what is going to be more impactful here in this situation right now? Is it going to be me having a conversation about it and not pretending like I have no idea that they're not doing certain drugs? Because then it's just like living in denial of what's occurring. But I've had some people who, use it like casually, but then some who've been really affected by it where they had to seek help. So when we're looking at lifestyle, what does that mean to that person?
Yeah. I guess I'll end on, do you guys know about the rat heaven study or rat paradise study? It was, I think it was in the 80s at, I believe, Stanford. They did a study where they took two sets of rats. One, they put them in a cage. So they put an empty cage. They put a vial of cocaine water. They put a vial of regular water. And what they found was the rats would go to the cocaine water and they would drink all that water until it was gone. Now they did another cage, but this cage had like rat carnival. It had the rat Ferris wheel. It had all the pretty rat girls. It had like a bunch of like cool rat music. Okay, I'm kind of going extra, but you know what I mean? They jacked up the cage. Like they gave it everything a rat will want, like a rat heaven, a rat paradise. They put the same cocaine water and the same regular water, and they found 100% of those rats went to the regular water and they didn't touch the cocaine water. Why? Because their environment was occupied with things that were more fulfilling than that. It was when they were stuck in the empty cage and they had nothing else. That's when they went to the drugs. And I mean, I don't think I have to spell it out what that whole study was about. If you don't have anything going on in your life, if you don't have any fulfillment going on, this is the stuff that you're ultimately going to end up finding, which is what we're always trying to do, which is why we do football, which is why we do the programming, the poetry nights, everything that you can think of that we build around the life of this youth is to give them other options. It's to give them a sense of purpose, a sense of fulfillment. And when you can do that, then they can make better choices or healthier choices for themselves, I guess.
And we just messed up because my memory card just died.
Did you get that?
I don't know.
All right. Well, I guess we'll find out. Okay. Well, I guess this is me and 𝗧𝗍 for the outro then. All right. Well, 𝗬𝗏's camera died. All right. Well, last week. All right. Sure. All right, everybody. Well, that's this week's episode. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, this is just our perspective on mentoring. What's yours? See you next week. Is already gone.
Yeah, you'll have my voice though, right?
Yeah.